Welcome to Dare to Soar with your host, Dr. RC. Dr. RC will empower, encourage, and strengthen you. She will help you to soar to your highest potential while instilling hope. Please welcome the host of Dare to Soar, Dr. RC.
Good Saturday morning, everyone. Oh, what an informational show that we are going to have. Homeless education, African American disparities in housing. This morning, I'll be joined by Mr. Damion Wilson, and I want to jump right in and give you some background information about him. He is a wealth of information and going to provide some very great information to you on this morning. Mr. Damion Wilson is a native of Hampton, Virginia, whose belief is in the principle of it takes a village. Oh gosh, how much that rings so true to raise a child. This shaped his lifelong commitment to social work and community empowerment as well. He earned his bachelor's of social work degree from Norfolk State University and HBCU and his master of social work with a specialization in school social work from Virginia Commonwealth University. After beginning his career in foster care, Mr. Wilson joined Virginia Beach City Public Schools as only the second, did you hear me? The second African American male school social worker in the division. During his years of service, he worked extensively in Title I alternative education settings, addressing poverty, inequity, and educational barriers. He also founded a rites of passage group focused on the social and emotional development of young Black boys. In 2020, he was appointed, that's a hand clap, to coordinator of school social work services in Virginia Beach City Schools, becoming the first and only African American to hold this position. And what a better opportunity to interview him, being that this is Black History Month as well. He now oversees more than 40 school social workers and serves as the division's McKinney-Vento liaison, ensuring students experiencing homelessness receive equitable support. Mr. Wilson also serves as the National Corresponding Secretary for the National Association of Black Social Workers, NABSW. His mission is rooted in dismantling systemic barriers, improving financial and educational outcomes for vulnerable families, and empowering communities to rise beyond circumstances. Good morning, Mr. Wilson. Welcome to Dare to Soar.
Good morning, Dr. RC. I feel so humble and honored. What a great introduction. Like to hear those things about myself sometimes. You always need some words of affirmation about how much we come along. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And like I said, you are a history maker. And as we wrap up Black History Month, what a better time to tag onto this as well as engage in the conversation that we're about to have. Don't want to belabor our conversation because you have so much to share from this perspective. So with that being said, tell us, what does homeless education mean from a systems perspective?
Wow. Well, being that we are in 100 years of Black History Month, founded by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, which started as Black History Week, actually. So I'm going to do some justice because he was about education. And when I hear this question about systems theory, it brings me back to my undergrad days when learning about systems. But when it comes to homeless education, systems are interconnected. They all are connected to one another. If you're talking about education is the lead way, the pathway for better job opportunities. Better job opportunities influence economics. Better economics influences the community that you're going to live in. Better the community you live in is going to influence the type of schools you attend. They are all interconnected. If you have failing communities, you have failing schools, and vice versa. I say that very often. If you're in very productive, very financially stable communities, then you're going to have very much successful schools. So they are all interconnected. They are all look after one another. If you are not educated or not trained in a specific job or position that's going to bring financial stability to you, you are going to have very some poor outcomes. You're going to have poor housing, poor education. Poor education leads to academic disengagement, and it can possibly lead to dropout, which leads to incarceration. And the whole theme that if you think education costs, then try ignorance. As a child, I did not know what that bumper sticker that on the car means. But as an adult and as a taxpayer, I definitely know what it means. That if you do not invest in education, if you do not invest in better jobs, then you're going to pay for it with ignorance, which often leads to poverty and incarceration, which is obviously sometimes a burden on the taxpayer.
I love that. And what a fantastic way to lead into our first commercial. Guys, I want you to just hold on to what Mr. Wilson has just shared. I promise you, he has so much more to share. Don't go away. This is Dare to Soar, and I am Dr. RC. We'll be right back after this commercial.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern, as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. Oh my gosh, guys, I told you, speaking with the history maker, what a perfect way to end Black History Month. But also, Mr. Wilson, he is the coordinator in Virginia City Public Schools and national corresponding secretary for the National Association of Black Social Workers as well. I want to dive right back in because this topic, homeless education, African American disparities in housing. It's such a profound topic to talk about, especially in this day and time right now. So, with that being said, what are the most common misconceptions about students experiencing homelessness?
Well, I think when it comes to being in the school system and education, particularly McKinney-Vento, which I'm hoping we're going to discuss later, we have a more broader view of homeless as defined by when you talk about the federal definition. So
Mhm.
I'm going to have to bring clarity. But when it comes within education, the misconceptions are that they're, lack motivation, that they're not smart, that, it's their own parents doing. A lot of the misconceptions oftentimes goes to the parents. They don't work hard enough, it's their own fault, that they're addicts, that they're no good. I don't want this kid in my school because he's going to bring down my test scores because, these school systems and schools, we're trying to strive to meet, state and sometimes federal mandates. So the misconception is that it's their own doing, that this happened to them in that bad circumstances. And sometimes the economy has no bearing or no role in why some of our families are displaced. So it is pretty much a unfortunately negative train of thought, and it's something that we have to erase, because if you are not loving the children that you are teaching, if you are not loving the community that you're in, and if you pass these people to the side, that means your house is not clean. In order to have a
Mhm.
clean house, everything must be taken care of. Every room in the house must be kept, and if one room in the house is not kept, then you have a problem. That means your house is not clean, and that's the approach that we have to take, just as a society and just within our public school system.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which drives me into a great as far as my next question is concerned. And I feel like a commercial is coming, but if it does, if I do get the break, we'll break. But I promise, guys, we will return to this question, which is why are African American families disproportionately represented in housing and instability statistics? I know that's a large question. I know my listeners are just like, woo, you said a mouthful, Dr. RC. Absolutely. But this is the reality, and we have to address things head on. That's the purpose of having conversations like this. So, Mr. Wilson, please go ahead and get started. And as I said, if we have to break, it's okay. We will, I promise you guys, we will circle back around to it.
Well, as African Americans, we make up 13 to 14% of this country, but make up to almost 50% of the families that are identified as homeless. With 750,000 people that are homeless, you can do the math and do the stats for my statisticians and mathematicians out there. So we're talking about restrictive housing policies, race, the problem of the 20th century, as W.B. Du Bois has framed in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. You have these restrictive covenants, discriminatory housing laws. You are talking about predatory loans. You are talking about a pretty much a tax for being black, not able to get loans, not able to get housing, redlining,
Yes.
historical redlining, which black homes were devalued. The communities, the interstate construction, interstate under President Eisenhower, that all played a role. When you're talking about how black communities are devalued in housing, it's hard for sometimes African Americans to get loans, even if their credit is good, especially as compared to white Americans. So it's a discriminatory policy. When you're even talking about even our federal government, such as housing and urban development, or just the Federal Housing Authority, those institutions have played a role in just discrimination. So we are talking about pretty much paying high rents. We're talking
Right.
about pretty much not able to get a home and being able to buy a home and have a home is the key to wealth and equity. So those are things that have always impacted African Americans, and that is what we still struggle with today because there's still
Mhm.
discrepancies in that area.
It definitely is. As you talked about the wealth piece of it, that's something could be a show all by itself. And we can dive deep into that because, the equitability of it all, it greatly makes a difference. And it's all about educating ourselves. And I'm saying ourselves because we're in this all together, ourselves as a whole, which is so key. So I thank you for bringing those points out. I know that is a tough question, and some may want to receive it, some may not understand it, and it's hard to talk about. So thank you for detailing that out. So when we talk about historical housing policies and how it continues to impact our African American families today, and you did touch on that, is there any additional information that you would like to add to that as I ask that question?
I often reference this book by Richard Rothstein, I believe, is Color of Law, and he talked about historical redlining, and he talked about how historical federal government policies really enhance that. You talk about the creation of the suburbs, you talk about black communities, you talk about blockbusting, which is an old term from the 40s and 50s when a black family moved in. Then we had people fleeing. It's called white flight. That's the sociology term of it that we have. So when you're talking about historical redlining, how black districts are devalued once again, housing prices seem to come low just because of the race of that community. So we are living in a time that is segregated, and even though we preach unity, we're a Judeo-Christian nation, we often say that Sunday can be the most segregated hour. So that's also true in a lot of our communities as well. But these historical housing policies, though, have pretty much discriminated and have made it very difficult for just African Americans, people of color, and just even other vulnerable populations to reach that American dream that we see on TV. That we can say that it comes through hard work, and that is not always the case. So we're talking about restricted covenants that you cannot buy or sell a house to a African American. That was in place. You are talking about just communities that are just pretty much segregated, and we're talking about, I think, even I mentioned the interstate and how that destroyed black communities. We're talking about historic communities such as the Hill District in Pittsburgh, Overtown in Miami, Jacksonville, right up the interstate where I live in Richmond, Virginia, that were destroyed by the interstate and that displaced a lot of black families and communities who owned and had their houses, and they were never really compensated for it. And my last point is, even where I'm from, Hampton, Virginia, we had C.C. Spalding Court, which was a black community middle class, and they made way for the power plant, and they destroyed that community. and never really was compensated. So all of that served to displace African Americans, and this is by just our own federal government.
And what a great platinum nugget to go to commercial on. I want you all to ponder on that. It is time for a commercial break. Mr. Wilson will return to share more on this topic.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back once again. Absolutely, this is Dare to Soar, and you know it. It's me, Dr. RC. I am here with Mr. Damion Wilson. What are we speaking about? I can feel the energy that you are burning to know. Those who may just be tuning in, we are talking about homeless education, African American disparities in housing, and what a great conversation we are having this morning. He is dropping those platinum nuggets. I hope that commercial break gave you an opportunity to get that tea, that coffee, get relaxed, settled in. If you're driving, turn up the volume, because when I tell you he's going to continue to drop those platinum nuggets, he is going to do just that with the time as we continue to go on. So as we dive in, when we talk about homeless education, I would be remiss if I did not ask him the question of how does housing instability affect academic engagement and student mental health? Woo, what two great hot topics to tie in together. So, Mr. Wilson, please respond to that question, if you will.
Um, I know of it was a student of mine formerly when I was a school social worker. I was at a Title I school, and it was a student, and they wanted to pretty much boot the student out because the student was not doing well academically. The student did meet the definition of homeless, and what was sad, they were just complaining about the student sleeping. They were complaining about the student not being engaged. They were complaining about pretty much the student is not doing well academically, behavioral. Then it dawned upon them once I indicated that this baby is sleeping in a car. This baby and mom is sleeping in a car. They're fighting for their meal. The only time she gets the meals when she comes to school for breakfast and when she comes for lunch. And then they're eating the worst kind of meals when they're in the car. This mom's rent went up from pretty much, I believe it was $800 to $2,000 a month. And she couldn't afford it. So now she is forced to live on the street. And it never dawned upon them that when you're living in a car, when you are sleeping in the Walmart and it's cold, I'm going to be engaged academically.
Yeah.
That is the last thing I'm thinking about. Yes, I'm going to be depressed. Yes, I am going to fight out. I'm going to have anxiety. I'm struggling to survive. It is a fight for survival, and you call it a middle passage experience. I'm fighting for survival. I'm trying to eat. I'm cold. That is the last thing I'm going to focus on. I'm seeing my
Mm,
peers who I may believe, have more stable environments, and I'm fighting, I'm struggling. So I say that to say that, when we're talking about your mental health, particularly, I'm going to have anxiety and depression because I'm in a situation. I'm seeing my mom, my father in some incidents not able to provide and they're struggling. And then that takes a toll. So once again, everything plays a role and everything interconnects. So I need people to really look at that and really look at our students and the circumstances that they are trying to overcome.
yeah, I love that. As you were saying those things, they were ringing so very true to what we experience in this profession in itself and the meaning behind it. And then that advocacy piece, because clearly your voice of advocacy brought light to a situation where many may not realize or recognize or just kind of bypass it because they're so focused with their in and out day roles and responsibilities of the work. But that's where school social workers come in to bring that light, to bring that information, to bring that balance, which brings me to explaining the significance of the McKinney-Vento Act, because it is so crucial and so detailed in what it allows for. So please.
The McKinney-Vento Act, for those who don't know, is legislation passed in the late 1980s. And what I like to say, pretty much to keep it simple, is that it holds school divisions accountable.
Mhm.
When it comes to families that are displaced, students that we recognize as homeless, it allows them to remain in their school of origin. Before that, if you were homeless, you were bouncing from school to school. You had to pretty much, look at residency requirements. And if you were not able to provide an address, then, sometimes you will not end up being enrolled in the school,
Yes.
becoming a dropout. So it holds school divisions accountable because it allows students to remain in the school of origin, because the key word in this is stability. Stability. Hopefully, I did not misspell that, but it is about stability. It's about stability and just pretty much ensuring that kids have some consistency. So the McKinney-Vento Act allows students to remain in their school of origin or the school they were attending, to allow them consistency, continue academic engagement, familiarity with their peers, because that's the social aspect I think we minimize, and their teachers and instruction. Because when you are moving from school to school, you're losing instruction. There are going to be educational gaps. And then once again, other resources we offer is the free lunch. We offer resources over our school materials and supplies, and a whole wealth of other support, such as tutoring if necessary, as delegated by the McKinney-Vento liaison. So we are really trying to support our students through this act. Is very important, it's very critical, and it really holds school divisions accountable. We just can't get rid of kids just because they're
Mhm.
homeless or poor. No, they have a right to be educated too, and it is our duty and responsibility to ensure that they are.
And that you put that so wonderfully. Um, you really, really did. And even if you didn't spell stability correctly, we got the gist of it, because that's what it's about. It is about creating a stability that our children need. Our children right now are facing so many things, a multitude, and it's layered on top of layer on top of layer with everything that they're facing right now. And we know the transition of how society is, kind of circling round around right now. The impact is even more profound when we have children in elementary school that are facing the mental health pieces that are oftentimes connected with homelessness. And it's not always, so don't think that Dr. RC is saying that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we have to take into account, just as Mr. Wilson shared, all that our children are facing and what they have to engage in. And then those hidden spots that they're not willing to share. Why? Because they just want to go to school and learn, or go to school to be or engage with their peers without having someone dig deep into what's happening. Hey, that school social work power is there. I want you all to take note of it, because that is what we do in this field. We bring light to what you may not be seeing or may not understand. And with that being said, it's time for another commercial break. Mr. Wilson has continued to drop those platinum nuggets. They're not golden, they are platinum. I hope that you're taking these notes so you can reflect on them a little later. We will be right back.
Mike Zoric, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Good Saturday morning. Oh, yes, you're tuned into the right place. Dare to Soar with Dr. RC. And my guest for this morning is Mr. Damion Wilson. Oh, when I tell you, he's bringing so much breadth to this conversation that we're having: homeless education, African American disparities in housing. He is giving so much to this, pouring so much. He's given examples of real life stories as well. I don't want to talk too much, guys, because you're tuned into Dare to Soar, but I want you to hear from a history maker. What a great time to have him on this, but also to a topic that needs its just due, if you will. So, with that being said, I want to dive right back in. You just shared about the McKinney-Vento Act in itself, but I want to go just a little bit deeper on another side of that, which is, what does strong district level advocacy look like?
It starts from the top. Your buy-in is from the top, from your superintendent to your school board, is very important. That's where it starts. If you do not have a school board or superintendent that buys into this and believes in the students who are under this McKinney-Vento who are homeless, then you are going to have some very poor results. And I've been very fortunate to have that sort of buy-in from my superintendent in Virginia Beach City Public Schools, Dr. Donald Robertson, and the school board that has been supportive. You are talking about not only the academic part of it, but there is a financial side to this too that often, plays a very pivotal role, particularly in this time where we're talking about budget cuts and all other financial barriers that, we are trying to sometimes minimize, but also trying to save costs. So advocacy looks like from the top down. I think when you look at my school division, because I'm going to tout my school division for a little bit, the buy-in is from the superintendent, the school board, the principals. We're talking about individuals who engage with students, really are pretty much factors in their success. Then we're talking about Title One. I'm blessed to get funding from Title One. That is a blessing. We're talking about tutoring programs for our McKinney-Vento students who are in some schools that have a high population of homeless. We're talking about giving them students resources. We do a great Jumpstart program at one of our middle schools that actually supports book bags and school materials for 600 to 700 homeless students in our division. So that is advocacy. The superintendent comes out. It is a buy-in. And when you see that type of success, the community is going to buy in and realize the importance, because we are also partnering with community leaders in that event as well. So it's a district level advocacy, basically is connected to the community, and it's the buy-in from the top down. And then I'm going to say that I'm blessed, Dr. RC, to have school social workers doing the case management, because not every school division utilizes school social workers for McKinney-Vento. Sometimes you might have 3 or 4 people trying to support 1,000 students who are homeless, but I am very blessed to have 40 school social workers on the ground doing the case management and advocating for these families. And I am blessed for that. I do not take that for granted. And I am just obviously very happy with the work that they are doing. So that is what advocacy looks like. I will not change my system for anything. I am blessed to have school social workers because I do talk to other liaisons who are not fortunate to have that because our skill set is operating from a different mind frame because of our training.
Yes, 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 and kudos to your social workers. I got guys, I hope you understand. This is a coordinator who is giving praise to those, I won't say work under him. I will say work alongside of him because he's rolling up his sleeves and doing the work also. And that is so key, so important when you're in this role or in the field to have someone who is working alongside of you, who's advocating on your behalf as a school social worker, who's sitting to those tables and making it known why you are important, which is why I want to ask you, how can school social workers shift from crisis response to systematic change? And we know right now we have a lot of systematic change going on.
We do. I think as social workers, and this may, I don't want to dive into our profession so far as micro, macro, and meso. I
Mhm.
often get into debates with some of my social workers about are we just becoming clinical and not focusing on macro? But with that being said, I think we need to be very much proactive instead of reactive. We are reacting to crisis. I think I am fortunate once enough. I praise Virginia Beach City Public Schools and the City of Virginia Beach. I'm fortunate enough to serve on the continuum of care. That is a pleasure and opportunity that not all McKinney-Vento liaisons have. So I'm able to see how federal funding and money is allocated to a lot of our agencies that service homeless. And why that is important, the majority of agencies, they service your adults, your domestic violence, LGBTQ, as you know, definitely be coming
Yes.
along. But a lot of agencies that are youth serving, they seem to get the least amount of money. So that is something
Mhm.
that's always, particularly for those youth who are unaccompanied, who have nowhere else to go. So I do think working alongside our continuum of care and then working with a housing resource center like we do have in Virginia Beach is very critical because then that's the opportunity to have resources. I'm also looking at, basically getting involved and engaged with HUD and programming and really service coordination. Another social work term that we utilize is that we are trying to provide those resources to our families through identifying those necessary resources and ensuring our families know how to engage in outreach. So that is what I feel is that we need to respond to instead of reacting to crisis. We need to be prepared. We need to look at more preventive services and we need to be really engaged with these families, which is why I say I believe I praise my social workers because the case management component is just very important. If you are
Mhm.
in contact with these families on a consistent basis, then you can sometimes, a lot of times, prevent or minimize their homelessness or when they're about to be displaced because you're already in contact with them. You know when they're going to shift and you know how they are moving. So I praise my social workers once again, and I believe that case management piece is just very important.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I love that. And then the outreach piece also, it is so, so critical because, I always say no one wakes up and say, "Oh, I want to be homeless today."
Mhm.
That's not anyone's dream to wake up and say that. But they're in these situations and they're looking for that pull up, that way to say, okay, what line do I need to take so I can move past this? I don't want to stay here forever, but sometimes it's longer than they anticipate. But it does not mean that that is with intention. And then for our children who are having to go this, as Mr. Wilson has shared, it is so critical for them also. They want to feel normal in the sense, and not that there aren't, but their situations preclude what they're going through. So that's key and important also. I want you all to hold on to that. It is time for another commercial break. Don't go away. I promise you, Mr. Wilson has more to share.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Welcome back once again. Yes, it's me, Dr. RC, and this is Dare to Soar. I am joined this morning by Mr. Damion Wilson, who's the coordinator for school social work services in Virginia Beach City Public Schools and National Recording Secretary for National Association of Black Social Workers. Didn't I tell you he was going to be giving you some information this morning? Oh my gosh, he's been dropping those platinum nuggets. Don't forget to like, share, and comment as you're watching. I don't want to hold him up. So we've talked about the system itself. We've talked about changes. We've spoken about McKinney-Vento. You eloquently provided that information. But let's talk about policy at this point. What policy changes are urgently, I know this is another loaded question, urgently needed to address African American housing disparities?
I think we have to look at the system within. We have to really be innovative. We have to look at these inclusive zones. Housing is becoming expensive. It's becoming expensive. You have what we call opportunity zones here in Norfolk, Virginia, in my backyard. Is one of the cities with the highest opportunity zones, which businesses or a lot of rich folks pretty much come and buy land, property,
Mhm.
and then rent it out at the pretty much highest cost they can. Basically, even in Virginia Beach, we have, we're surrounded by the beach and the water, very beautiful. And we have communities surrounded by water that, were low income or income driven, but are being bought out by these developers in what they call opportunity zones. And then these opportunity zones, they pretty much fix the community up and then they raise the rent. So we need to look at, once again, addressing lending practices. We need to address, discrimination when it comes to housing. And with our current political climate, I'll be very soft in this. When you talk about the pretty much when you're talking about civil rights, the Department of Civil Rights, the lawyers are being cut back in their
Yes.
view and their scope of the practice. They're looking at other things. So it might be in this point in time very much easier for people to be discriminated when they are denied a loan for housing or they're not able to rent where they need to do. I think we need to look at tax incentives for developers to build income restricted housing.
Mhm.
In Norfolk, Virginia, once again, they tore down a lot of our housing projects and they moved a lot of those individuals in other communities, Section 8 vouchers. That can be very difficult to find someone who can rent to
Yes.
you. We need to have really much communities and neighborhoods that are income restricted and driven, and not for those in poverty too. We're talking even middle class Americans as well who are not able to purchase a home. We need to look at zones and have tax incentives and breaks for those individuals who are willing to build homes and for communities for hardworking Americans.
Oh gosh, 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 gosh. And you really just touched on the next question that I was going to ask you, which is how can communities support schools? Because that is so critical, especially when um, I'm going to say this lightly, but how outsiders, if you will, are coming to buy communities that they don't necessarily have a true investment unless it's a financial investment. I'll say that in them. So, how can communities and schools support schools addressing housing, which is with instability, because that can be very, very tough. You're living there, you're seeing what's happening, but sometimes you feel powerless to that. And you did share a couple of points. Is there any additional information that you would like to add to that?
I just think as cities, we need to have a mandate. Here in Hampton Roads, 5 of our 7 cities, as we call it, has some of the highest eviction rates in the country.
Mhm.
5 of the 7 cities, and right up the road in Richmond, Virginia, I think 10 years ago, they were number 1. So it is pretty much we need to really look at a mandate on who's buying these properties. And then once again, we need to restrict who is buying these properties, and we need to make sure there's affordable housing. I mean, I look at the crisis in San Francisco. As my old teacher said, googly muggly. It is just very difficult to purchase a home. I think we need to have really look at really housing and who we're developing housing for. And I go by income restricted or income driven, but we need to make sure that affordability, that word we're throwing around in politics, as they say, is truly valuable and truly valuable, in that we need to ensure that our families, hardworking folks, are able to secure housing and rent that is not outrageous. I often am ashamed that when I walk into a home in a community, and I'm walking to this parent's home and I'm seeing the ceiling falling down. I'm
Mhm.
seeing mold. And the fact that this was about 7, 8 years ago, and the fact that this mother with 4 children in a 3 bedroom was run down was paying $2,500 a month, which is more than double my mortgage. And I like to think that I'm middle class and stable at this time, and she's doing that with that sort of community because these landlords are able to rent at the highest rate. There's no accountability, there's no checks and balances. They can rent what they want to, and a lot of times they don't even have to go to the court to get the eviction. They can just tell you
Mhm.
you need to get out my place at the end of the month, and then that's it. So we need to really look at that as a system. We need to hold landlords accountable, and then we need to have a process for those families who are facing eviction. Big up props to legal aid. If you have a legal aid in your state, they do great work in ensuring that advocates and renters are not being screwed over and are pretty much getting their due process and getting pretty much access to affordable housing.
I love that. I love that. And that brings me back to how I opened when I read your bio about it takes a village. And then the second piece I'll add to that is this: your vote counts, your voice matters, because without those things, changes cannot take place. As Mr. Wilson shared, what needs to be done to have grasp on what is taking place. Now, oftentimes, as being a social worker, we are thrust upon this and we may feel overwhelmed. So, if there was a brief message that you could share with school social workers who are just feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of this issue, what would that be?
I think you have to go back to ask the why that I get
Mhm,
into this profession.
mhm.
And the why is just very important. And if you are a social worker, I often say soul as a SOUL, social worker, because you got to have soul and heart to do this job.
Yes.
When you have soul and heart to do this job, that means you have care about the people, you have a commitment to the people. So I say all that to say that you are challenging systems. Frederick Douglass, because we are in Black History Month, says power concedes nothing without demand. With that being said, really have to look at systems and you have to be an advocate. And you can't go around tiptoeing, tap dancing, lollygagging, or pussyfooting when it comes to addressing systems. You have to be assertive and, dare I say, aggressive with trying to change these systems. You
Yeah.
don't change a system by asking it politely. You change it by being an advocate, being assertive, and then making sure the power structure sees you, so then that it makes it impossible for that very same system to function as it is. So once again, power concedes nothing out demand, and you have to be assertive. So I just tell my social workers to become advocates. I understand the clinical portion of it too, and the financial, but I'm a macro social worker, so I'm going to pretty much praise my macro social workers. We have to be pretty much advocates in this system and really make demands of your city government, your state government, because there needs to be a buy-in to ensure that we do have affordability all throughout for everyone in this country.
And on that note, it is time for another commercial break. We just have a few more minutes left within this hour. When we return, Mr. Wilson and I will be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern, as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Welcome back once again. And yes, we have returned. This is Dare to Soar, and I am Dr. RC. My guest, Mr. Damion Wilson, has been sharing a wealth of information. I just have a couple of more questions to ask him as we wrap up and close out. So, if you could paint a beautiful, beautiful picture, if you will, for the world to see, what would true housing equity look like in America?
I struggle with that question often, and this is going to sound crazy. I'm not sure, but I think in my dream, what it would look like is that we do not have any poverty, that we have equal jobs for everyone. We are taught that hard work gets you the American dream, but that is not always true because there are barriers and boulders that are sometimes in place that hinder and prevent that dream. And when that same system crushes you, it expects to hold you accountable for that when it's the very same system that crushes you. Why in the richest country where we have poverty, I do not know. And I think sometimes it's designed because we really want to get rid of poverty if we can, but I think it's sometimes designed to serve other folks. But with that being said, I think true equity means that everyone can afford to purchase a home or to have stable rents. It is pretty much your city, local, and state governments. Voting does matter, as you indicated before. I think that's how it should work. It should be all in agreement. It should be just like a marching band, as I used to say, where you are hitting the musical note. I think about drumline, one band, one sound. You just need
Yes.
to have that sort of cooperation with your city and state governments, that one band, that one sound philosophy. I think it's really an honest examination of how, city governments and school systems and everything in play is functioning. True housing equity means that everyone is not, is given a fair chance to buy a home, whether we engage with vouchers, whether we have zoning. Our city governments are responsible for zoning. Having zoning for just certain housing is just very important. If you are able to purchase home, that is also improves taxes. You improve taxes, then you have more funding through your schools, which is something I'm definitely going to pick up because I'm a public school employee. So all of that connected. So I think we really look at the bigger picture. We need to really look at making communities affordable so you can bring people into your city so that you don't have growth that is stagnant or, as what they may say in some localities, a brain drain. So you want to really be inclusive of individuals and make sure that they have housing that's affordable. And once again, based upon their income, it can be driven by their income where they can afford to purchase a home.
Excellent, excellent. And in one sentence, what does soaring look like for students who have experienced homelessness?
A beautiful struggle. And I
Oh,
say a beautiful struggle because life is beautiful. Life is a struggle. Life can be a beautiful struggle. I look at Talib Kweli, he's a rapper, one of my favorite rappers. He had an album named that, and I think it's a beautiful struggle. I think it is looking at your lack of sleep, once again, your mental health, the struggle to graduate. In our division of Virginia Beach, we do have a high graduation rate amongst our homeless students, and I'm proud. I think it's like 89, 90%. That is not the case nationally. So to see these students come from where they come from and
mhm.
then graduate and walk with a diploma, that's the most beautiful feeling in the world, which is why I say it is a very beautiful struggle.
Oh, I love the way you put that. Oh, guys, my time is come to a close with Mr. Wilson. Today, we are reminded that homelessness is not simply the absence of housing, it is often the presence of systematic inequity. When African American families are disproportionately affected, we must confront history, policy, and practice. Housing is foundational. I want you to remember that. Education is transformational. And as school social workers, stand in the intersection of both. Mr. Damion Wilson, I want to thank you for being my guest today. Your leadership and your firm commitment to justice centered service is just beyond words. So thank you very, very much. To our listeners, awareness is the beginning. Take note of that. Advocacy is the responsibility, and action is a mandate. Until next time, keep daring to soar above barriers and inequities, above systems that were never designed with equity in mind. Did you catch that? But we can go higher together. Never ever forget to spread your wings as you elevate to new heights and dare to soar. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and be safe.
This has been Dare to Soar with your host, Dr. RC. Come take a ride and soar to your highest level possible each week on Dr. RC's Dare to Soar.